I've been quoted as, I paint the light. Look, I just amaze myself sometimes that something comes out of that. I don't know how it happens, but...
So you developed that relationship and connection with the painting?
Absolutely. He told me, you're destined to go to Melbourne and be an artist. The atmosphere and the mood and this is the catalyst of my work. The parts of the painting where you don't know what's happening. So it's an ongoing thing.
Hey, I am Alina Reddy and welcome to Foreign Influence.
It was a wild experience.
Something clicked in me and I didn't want to be average anymore.
What I love about the dragon is...
How did that come about?
Well, educated.
So he survived for about an hour.
Best young emerging actor.
Oh, wow.
He has to be on point.
Yeah, yes. A particular sketch with Rebel Wills. Never stop learning.
I decided to run away.
Here I am, continuing my tennis journey here.
Thought, that's it?
A few opinions about what
Passages.
That made your journey harder? Hey everyone, this is Alina Reddy and welcome to Foreign Influence. We are at the Salt Contemporary Art Gallery in Queenscliff and we're about to have a chat to an Australian award-winning artist, Peter Watts, who is about to unveil his latest solo exhibition. Peter, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
I am absolutely gobstruck by your exhibition.
Thank you.
So much grandiose perspective in your paintings.
No, it's come up quite well, and it's just amazing to come in and to a gallery like Salt Contemporary and see all the work hanging in one space. I don't really get to see that very often because I'm working on individual pieces. To see it in a collective like this is quite amazing.
What was the source of your inspiration for this collection?
Well, this collection is a combination of my traditional Australian landscape and the other half is French landscape, which is sort of came out of left field. So let's hope that this, how that's perceived and accepted, well, time will tell. But the French side was due to my wife and I spending 2.5 months in Europe last year, and we had a family holiday in July. We had another trip planned in September. So we decided, what will we do in August? So I decided, let's go and paint. All of August, we landed in Nice, we hired a car, we went to the art shops, bought the paints, off we went. And spent a month in southern France, in Provence, based ourselves in a couple of areas, took off and just in that car and went through the countryside and spent a month just absorbing the French culture, the French villages, and occasionally I would take out the camera, the drawing, the video and paint.
So you needed to capture that.
Yes, and look, it worked out very well. I mean, it was challenging to try and paint with acrylic paints in plein air situations.
Because it dries so fast in the summer.
30 degrees.
Yes.
It was a challenge, but I tended to go out early in the morning to catch the light. photograph, draw, paint.
Just like the French masters.
Well, the French masters. Well, that's why we really went there, to chase the light as Van Gogh and Cézanne and Matisse and all those great artists went down there for that reason. We spent a month down there, and it just came out, and collating all that information, whether it be on drawing or photography or film, enabled me to bring it back to Australia and spend the next few months in my studio creating these wonderful larger pieces, which you'll see in this exhibition.
What did you think of the French people and culture?
Oh, well, look, the French are wonderful. I mean, we spent a lot of time in remote Provence, travelling through small towns, small villages. Every time you went to a small town, there was a beautiful little market, fresh food, fresh cheeses. You can't go wrong.
What more can you wish for?
Fantastic.
When did you develop this love for creativity?
Wow, that's been in my blood since I was young. At school, I loved drawing. I went to Horsham Tech School, and I had some really good teachers in year 10, 11, 12. These teachers were so good. They taught us painting, photography. We did ceramics. It was those teachers that inspired me to bring out the creativity.
Did you have an important figure who influenced your art journey?
Yes, there was a teacher in year 10, 11 and 12. His name was Chris Nichols. Sadly, he's passed away. He purchased one of my paintings in year 12.
How encouraging would that have been for you as a young person?
It was amazing. And he told me, you're destined to go to Melbourne and be an artist. As I said, sadly he passed away, but many years later, his wife found that painting and she rang me up. And she said, would you like that painting back? I said, well, of course I would. Now that painting today hangs in my studio as a sort of a spiritual connection to that person who guided me down a creative road.
And believed in you.
Believed in me.
Peter, how has your painting evolved over time?
I think all artists like to evolve. Now, I remember many years ago when I first started painting, I was very abstract and I got a few comments that it looked like Turner, which, wow, but I didn't want to look like Turner. It was very...
You wanted to look like Peter Watts.
That's right. Yeah. So I moved away from that and got a tad more realistic.
And Turner is really dark. You have a lot of blicks of light.
Yeah, well, my painting's got a lot more realistic. As I've learnt to paint the landscape in a more realistic way, the work's got more realistic. Having said that, I'm not sure where it's going to head. I'll keep it realistic without being too realistic, but still try and capture the atmosphere and the mood and the colours, the parts of the painting where you don't know what's happening. So it's an ongoing thing.
Did you pursue art after school?
Year 12, I went to Ballarat University for 3 years, and that's where I met my lovely wife. But I had a mission at university. Although I loved art, ceramics, painting, sculpture, whatever. I was destined to be a commercial artist,
Okay.
a graphic designer, because I knew that you can make a living out of that.
Well, consistent.
time.
Yeah, consistent living.
So
yeah.
you needed to make a living of what you do, and took that route of being a graphic designer, and of course passed and went to Melbourne with my wife, and we set up our graphic design business. The business of Watts Design is over 35 years old now, still run by my wife Helen and my son Chris, and I've sort of taken a sidestep because of this art.
How did that happen that you decided to become a full-time artist?
In my graphic design studio, before COVID, I hijacked one of the offices and I set up some paints because I always wanted to paint. And I started painting and doing these awful paintings. But you've got to start somewhere. After a while, they got better and better, and then COVID hit. And we all went home, we all isolated, and of course I just kept painting. Now, in the next 12 months, I did so many paintings and then started to get them into galleries, and they started to sell. I thought, wow, hang on a minute. People must like them.
That's such a great compliment for an artist.
Of course it
when
is.
people pay money for your work.
Of course it is. And that sort of urged me to pursue that more painting. So it got to a stage where it consumed me so much and they were selling so much that I went, that's it. I think I'll be a painter. And at this stage of life, I mean, it's a wonderful thing.
Well, congratulations. And you have had a lot of success officially. You have been a finalist of so many prizes. Can you just name a few?
Well, I was lucky enough to win the Camberwell Art Show Best in Show in 2022.
Incredible.
The same year I was a finalist the Glover Prize in Tasmania. In fact,
Wow.
2021, 22, I think 24, I was a finalist at the Glover in Tasmania, which is a great event and a
And
great
you won
weekend.
People's Choice Award.
2022, I won the People's Choice. So 2022 was a big year. It all came to hit me, so that was quite amazing.
Incredible. What do you think is the most important quality in an artist?
This could be a bit controversial, but
Well, your opinion.
my opinion, I look for some skill, talent, composition. I look for an artist that can control paint, whether it be oil or acrylic, in a very clever way, in their impression of how they want to paint. I don't necessarily mean it has to be photographic, but I just like the realism of particularly landscapes or portraiture. And this is why my wife and I spent many hours in galleries around the world pursuing and looking at these wonderful, famous artists that paint with such skill and talent. So I'm drawn to that sort of skill. So realism is pretty much what I pursue as a great quality in an artist. That's my opinion.
Okay, how interesting. So your preferred medium is
Acrylic.
acrylic.
And there's a reason for that, because once I hijacked that office in our graphic design studio, I used acrylic so I wouldn't smell the studio out. Had I used oil, oh my God, it would have been a disaster. But I managed over a period of time to control acrylic. It's a different beast. I've painted with oil, and I've got to tell you that oil is such a different medium that you have to be able to control.
And it dries so long,
That's right.
especially the dark colors can take up to a month.
And I don't really have the patience for that. But the acrylic paint is something you can still control and paint, and because it dries so quickly, you can cover up your mistakes.
You don't make any mistakes.
Oh, we all make mistakes.
Well, sometimes accidents are actually the best thing that happens to a painting.
That's right, that's right.
How would you describe your style?
Well, it's traditional Australian landscapes. My style is not so traditional in the sense that I've been quoted as I paint the light. And of course all artists paint the light, but I love the light from looking into it and coming towards you and creating atmosphere and shadows and breaking through adverse weather.
Drama.
Drama. I like the drama. That's right. And I think it's one of those things where if you're out and about in the countryside and you saw this storm coming and you saw this beautiful countryside and the sun broke through and created this beautiful lighting scenario, what's the thing you do? You take your camera and you take a photograph of, don't you? Well, that's what I try to create.
Do you think the fact that you grew up in the country,
yes,
that now really
absolutely
shows in your paintings, translates?
Absolutely. Yeah. I grew up in Horsham, Victoria. I left there when I was 17, but I spent a lot of time in the country, camping, fishing. So that adverse weather and those beautiful, the grampians, which I spent a lot of time in, is a catalyst for my upbringing, the country in me. And it was so important that when we finally moved to Melbourne, my wife and I bought a farm at Dalesford.
You couldn't let go.
Couldn't let go of the country.
Yes.
And we've had that farm for 30 odd years. So I've been up at this farm experiencing some absolutely incredible weather events, which I photograph as reference and inspiration. This is the catalyst to my work.
Are you an only child in the family?
Oh no, I'm the oldest of 5.
5. And how about your siblings? Are they artistic in any way?
There's a couple that have dabbled in art, yes, but not to the extent that I have. But not really. No, my parents weren't that arty. No.
What did your parents do?
Well, my father was in air conditioning and heating, and so he was a bit of a trade person. My mother was a librarian. She worked at the local radio station. So she had 3 jobs at one stage, trying to support 5 kids. So my hats off to her.
Mm. Peter, I would imagine you paint in isolation in your studio most of the time.
Yes.
And when you see people come to your exhibition, what do you hope they'll take away with them?
Well, that's the ultimate test, isn't it? To be amongst people at an opening and to them to tell you how wonderful your work looks is quite rewarding. I just hope that when people are viewing these paintings, they can see the depth and it takes them to a place where they not normally go to. But it's quite rewarding having the praise and the compliments. Of course, any artist would enjoy that, wouldn't they? So it's quite good.
Please describe your creative process from concept to completion. Okay,
well, I have a blank canvas, and this is the thing for a lot of artists. It's what do you paint? I start with the colour. Is this going to be warm, blue, monochromatic? And then I paint the clouds. The clouds all come first.
Okay.
So the clouds don't actually take that long at all. It's quite a quick process. And then I smudge in the background, and then I dab, and then all of a sudden I see something appearing. And I go, hang on, that could be that, that could be that. And it gets built up. I don't really have any reference. It all comes out of my mind.
Do you use brushes?
Brushes, yeah. yes, brushes, big thick brushes, small brushes, but it evolves over time, and I just amaze myself sometimes that something comes out of that. I don't know how it happens, but as I said, no reference. And as you build it up and as you do the fine detail, it takes you stand back and you have to be convinced of the depth of the perspective and the colour. So I've got to convince myself that it's working.
Okay.
So that takes a bit of time and skill, but it's taken a long time to achieve that. So that's the process. I mean, it's. So
you develop that relationship and connection with the painting.
Absolutely, yes, without reference. So, and that's how they evolve.
So without reference, completely no reference.
I would be driving around in the country. I'd be looking at gum trees, and I might see a couple of beautiful, and I might take a photo.
Okay.
But I don't copy that.
All right.
I just like to see the way they work.
Just from
the way
your
they
mind.
sit. and you paint them on the canvas, and I've got to be convinced. And if I'm convinced, well, I'm happy.
Well, clearly it's working for you.
I think it has, yes.
Peter, a lot of artists, sometimes they come across mental blocks. How do you overcome it if you ever come across them?
Well, I don't really have any mental blocks. It's the beauty about acrylic paint is that you can slap that paint down and let it go somewhere. Unlike oil, I guess you have to have a plan. I'm not an oil painter, but I assume you have to have a plan to where you're going to go. And if that doesn't go in that right place, well, that could be quite frustrating, I imagine. But with acrylic paint, you can make mistakes, you can cover it up. And if ever I have a lull in my thoughts, it's like, well, why don't I just grab a little canvas and bang that one out as a bit of a test. So you're always testing on small canvases before you go to big canvases, so you don't really have a mental block. You just keep painting.
How important do you think the role of art in the society?
Oh, very important. Art has played a role in society for centuries. I mean, it's the reason why it takes us places, doesn't it? It takes us to a place we want to be. I hope that some of these large landscapes, when they finally get hung in a situation, in a house or wherever, that someone can look at them and take them somewhere. It's instead of a white wall. This art's very, very important, I think.
Peter, thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you very much.
All the best for your amazing exhibition, and congratulations once again.
Thank you very much.
Fiona, you're the founder and the director of Salt Art Gallery.
I am, Elena, I am.
How many years?
So we've actually just turned 21, which is
happy birthday.
Thank you, thank you. I feel a little bit old when I say that. It's been a long time.
Well, that's a lot of years of success under your belt.
It is, yeah, it is. Yeah, I think when I first opened the gallery that many years ago, I mean, it's sort of evolved and changed over that period of time. But yeah, I didn't really anticipate that it would be still going so well 21 years down the track. So I feel very fortunate to work with so many incredibly passionate, committed artists. We also have a really loyal client base. Some of our clients and some of our artists have actually been with us from the very beginning for 21 years. So very fortunate.
Incredible. How did you develop that love and passion for art?
I think I've always loved art. So I come originally from a teaching background, so I was an art teacher for a period of time. My partner's an artist, and I think all of the travels that we ever did always revolved around galleries and art. We knew a lot of artists. So I think actually probably my prior life was sort of leading towards running a gallery. There were so many artists that we had in mind that we would love to sort of represent their work here on the Bellarine Peninsula. And so, yeah, came up with the idea and asked, and all of the artists that we asked said yes, and we've added new artists to the stable over that period of time. It's just evolved.
How do you select the artists? What is the selection criteria?
Yeah, it's interesting. People have asked me that in the past, and I think for quite a long period of time I struggled to actually answer that. But I think the longer I've had the gallery, the more I've realised, I think whilst we exhibit a broad range of art, from paintings to printmaking to sculpture to ceramics to glass, I think actually there's a sense of beauty that actually runs through the work. So I think everything that we show here is beautiful, and I think I love the idea that artworks will bring joy to people that acquire them, that you can have these beautiful things in your home, and every time someone looks at a work that they've acquired from us, that it makes them feel good and they love coming back and looking at those pieces time and time again. So I think it's beauty.
Going on stage to 20,000 people is a bit of a huge rush, and you know your year 7 girlfriend breaks your heart, so you write a little song. So obviously this might be a bit controversial, but
So
yeah.
it was like, oh, I've got this superpower.
I've got this superpower, yeah. And the colours just changed from week to week, month to month, and by the end of it there was a bit of a playful cheeky style throughout the work, so that's why the exhibition is called Tease. Yeah, it's been a wild ride, and I've loved every minute of it, and yeah, still going.